You know that feeling when you wake up from a dream that's so vivid, so weird, that it just sticks with you all day? A dream that feels less like a random fantasy and more like a message.
I mean, really think about it. What if those strange images swirling around in your head at night weren't just your brain sorting through the day, but were actually glimpses into a world that hasn't happened yet? A kind of warning, whispered across time.
Well, for one ancient king, this wasn't just a what if. His nightmares were prophecies. And the story of what he saw is the foundation of this incredible prophecy that you've probably never even heard of.
Okay, so our story kicks off with a guy named King Prasenajit of Kosala. He's a powerful ruler, has it all, but one night he's hit with this series of 10 absolutely terrifying dreams. He wakes up in a cold sweat, totally convinced they're a sign that everything is about to come crashing down. His kingdom, his family, even his own life.
And listen, these were not your typical bad dreams. We're talking deeply strange, surreal visions. A fox, of all things, sitting on a golden throne, eating from golden plates. A full-grown cow stealing milk from its own baby. I mean, these are images of a world turned completely upside down, where the natural order is just broken. And he was desperate to figure out why.
So, the next morning, what does a terrified king do? He calls in his top advisors, right? He gets his high Brahmin priest in there, tells him about all 10 visions, and basically demands to know what's going on. The priest's answer, though, it wasn't comforting. It was a whole new kind of nightmare.
You can just picture it. The Brahmin gets this grim look on his face and says, "Yep, you were right to be scared. These are omens of the highest disaster." He tells the king that the heavens are furious, and to save himself, he's going to have to pay a massive, terrible price. And the priest's solution? It was absolutely brutal. He says that to stop this catastrophe, the king has to perform this huge, bloody sacrifice. He needs to kill his own beloved queen, his son and heir, his most loyal servants, even his animals, and then burn all his most valuable treasures as an offering. Only then, the Brahmin says, can fate be changed.
The king is just shattered. Can you imagine? But his chief queen, a woman named Malika, she sees his agony. And when he tells her what the Brahmin said, she doesn't freak out. Instead, she offers him a different way forward. A much, much smarter one. Her suggestion was so simple, but so powerful. She said, "Look, instead of giving in to fear and superstition, why don't we go seek out some actual wisdom?" As it happens, the Buddha was staying in a grove nearby. She begged her husband to just go ask him for his take before doing something so horrible. The king, clinging to any hope, agrees and goes to see the Buddha. And this, right here, is where the entire story flips on its head. The king explains the 10 dreams, and the Buddha doesn't offer some counter-ritual or magic spell. He just smiles and tells the king to relax.
He explains that these dreams have nothing to do with him personally. They aren't about his kingdom, his family, or his life. They are, in fact, prophecies. They're glimpses into what the world will be like in a much later, future era, a time when morality and order begin to fall apart.
So the Buddha starts breaking it all down. Remember that fox on the golden throne? He said that predicts a time when unworthy people, folks with low character, will claw their way into positions of power. Meanwhile, the truly noble and wise will be pushed aside and ignored. It's a vision of a world where merit just doesn't matter anymore. And what about that really disturbing image of the mother cow taking milk from its own calf? Well, that was a prophecy about the breakdown of the family unit. The Buddha explained it symbolizes a future where parents lose all sense of dignity and actually exploit their own kids, living off their children's earnings and completely destroying that fundamental bond of respect.
And you start to see how each vision is this really sharp social commentary. The horse eating from both ends, that's about systemic corruption. It means that future rulers and officials will take their official salary, that's the eating from the mouth, but they'll also be endlessly greedy, taking bribes and shaking down the common people for more money. That's being fed through the rear.
A clear pattern just takes shape across all 10 dreams, doesn't it? Each one of these bizarre visions points to a specific way society will decay. Little trees blossoming too soon? That means people will get old and frail way too young. Young trees bearing fruit? A vision of young girls having children before they're even ready. And that murky pond with clear water on the edges? That predicted a time when the capital cities, the centers of power, would be corrupt and chaotic, while the quiet borderlands would be the only peaceful places left. And that final, chilling vision of a stream of blood? A prophecy of an age defined by endless, brutal war?
So,
As the Buddha just calmly lays out the true meaning of each dream, you can imagine the king's terror just melting away, replaced by this dawning sense of understanding. That massive weight of personal doom was finally lifted off his shoulders.
He puts his relief into this beautiful metaphor. He says his mind was like this tiny little cup, just overflowing with fear. But the Buddha's wisdom gave him a much bigger container. Now he could hold this knowledge without it destroying him. His fear was gone, replaced by a really profound sense of peace.
And the king doesn't waste any time. He goes straight back to his palace, calls off the horrifying sacrifices, gives his wise queen Malika a massive reward, and fires that fear-mongering Brahmin on the spot. He makes a vow right then and there to never again listen to superstition, but to always seek out true wisdom instead.
Which leaves us with one final big question. The story interprets these dreams as prophecies for a distant future. But when you look at the world around us today, with all its social upheaval, corruption, and conflict, you kind of have to wonder, don't you? Was this a prediction for one specific point in time? Or is it a timeless warning about what happens to any society at any time when it starts to lose its way?